The flagship of Earth was lost for centuries. Now it orbits their sun. Summary: the UES Horizon, Earth's most advanced flagship, vanished without a trace during humanity's first major interstellar war 3 centuries ago. Now, deep space sensors have detected the impossible. The legendary ship orbits a distant alien sun, still transmitting Earth's identification codes. As a rescue mission races across the galaxy to investigate, they discover that the Horizon's crew has not only survived but evolved into something extraordinary. What began as a desperate search for lost heroes becomes a revelation that will forever change humanity's understanding of survival, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be human. The emotional stakes soar as present-day crews must confront the cost of 3 centuries of isolation and the devastating choices their ancestors made to keep Earth's legacy alive. Part 1. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display in the command center of Deep Space Station Omega, her hands trembling as she read the impossible data streams flowing across the screen. The identification beacon was unmistakable: UES Horizon, registry number HSF001, Earth's first and greatest flagship. The ship that had vanished 300 years ago during the Centauri Wars, taking with it 5,000 of humanity's finest soldiers, scientists, and explorers. "Run the verification again," she ordered, her voice barely steady. The young technician's fingers danced across his console, but the results remained unchanged. The legendary ship that children learned about in history classes was real, alive, and orbiting the star system designated Kepler-442. Admiral Marcus had materialized in the command center through emergency holotransmission from Earth, his weathered face gray with disbelief. "Sarah, tell me this isn't some elaborate hoax or enemy deception. The Horizon was lost in the Veil Nebula. We searched for decades." "Sir, the quantum signature matches perfectly with archived records. The ship is broadcasting on our emergency frequencies, using encryption protocols that haven't been used since the 23rd century." "But Admiral—" Chen paused, struggling to process what her senses were telling her. "The ship appears to be changed. Its mass signature is 3 times larger than original specifications, and it's generating energy readings that dwarf anything in our current fleet." Webb's expression darkened. "Change how?" "We don't know, sir. Long-range scans show massive structural additions, technologies we can't identify. The whole configuration suggests extensive modifications, almost like the ship has been growing." Chen pulled up a comparison image, showing the sleek, kilometer-long vessel from historical records alongside the current sensor data. The modern reading showed something vast and organic-looking, with flowing curves and extensions that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. "My God," Webb whispered. 5,000 souls. If even a fraction survived." He straightened, his command authority reasserting itself. "Captain, I'm authorizing Project Reunion. Take the UES Pathfinder and a full diplomatic crew. Find out what happened to our people." Chen nodded, her mind already racing through the implications. The Pathfinder was humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, built with 3 centuries of technological progress since the Horizon's disappearance. But as she stared at the sensor readings, she wondered if their advancement would mean anything to whatever the Horizon had become. Within hours, the Pathfinder launched from Earth's orbital shipyards, its crew of 200 specialists chosen for their expertise in xenoarchaeology, quantum engineering, and first contact protocols. As they entered hyperspace, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just conducting a rescue mission. They were approaching something that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of itself. The journey to Kepler-442 took 6 weeks through the hyperspace corridors, each day bringing them closer to answers that had eluded humanity for 3 centuries. Chen spent sleepless nights reviewing historical records of the Horizon's crew, studying the faces of men and women who had become legends. Commander Elena Vasquez, the brilliant engineer who had designed the ship's revolutionary quantum drive. Dr. James Morrison, the xenobiologist who had theorized about adaptive survival in deep space. Captain Robert Sterling, whose tactical genius had saved Earth during the early days of the Centauri Wars. As they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-442 system, the crew of the Pathfinder fell silent. The star burned bright and yellow before them, similar to Earth's sun but somehow more vibrant. And there, in a stable orbit that defied conventional physics, hung the impossible sight that would haunt Chen's dreams forever. The ship before them was magnificent and terrifying. The original Horizon's sleek military design was still visible at its core, but massive organic-looking extensions flowed from its hull like wings or roots. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its surface in rhythms that resembled a heartbeat. The vessel stretched over 5 kilometers in length, its surface alive with movement and light. "Captain," whispered Communications Officer Liu, her voice filled with awe and terror. "We're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English, but the voice patterns." She paused, her face pale. The vocal analysis suggests the speaker is over 300 years old, but somehow still alive. Chen's throat constricted as she gave the order that would change everything. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was warm, ancient, and unmistakably human despite undertones that suggested something more. "Welcome, children of Earth. We have been waiting so very long for you to find us. I am Elena Vasquez, Chief Engineer of the UES Horizon, and we have so much to show you about what humanity can become when it refuses to surrender to the impossible." The boarding shuttle approached the Horizon's docking bay, which had expanded into a cavernous organic structure that pulsed with soft, golden light. Chen led a team of 12 specialists, each carrying both diplomatic credentials and enough firepower to level a city block. She wasn't sure which would prove more useful. "Atmospheric readings are impossible," muttered Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the mission's xenobiologist. "The bay contains a perfect Earth-standard atmosphere, but the composition includes elements that shouldn't exist in nature. It's like the air itself has been engineered." As their shuttle settled onto a landing platform that seemed to grow from the deck to accommodate them, Chen noticed that the metal beneath their feet felt warm and slightly yielding, as if it were alive. The airlock opened with a sound like a sigh, and they stepped into a world that challenged every assumption about what a starship should be. The corridors of the Horizon had transformed into something resembling a living organism more than a vessel. Walls curved in organic patterns, lit by bioluminescent strips that responded to their presence by brightening gently. The air hummed with an energy that seemed to resonate in their bones, and Chen could swear she heard something like a heartbeat echoing through the ship's structure. "This way, please," came a voice from the walls themselves. It was Elena Vasquez again, but now Chen could hear the subtle harmonics that suggested the woman was speaking through the ship itself. "I understand this must be overwhelming. We had similar reactions when we first began to change." They followed guidance lights that flowed like liquid mercury along the floor, leading them deeper into the ship. As they walked, Chen caught glimpses of what had once been crew quarters and command stations, now transformed into spaces that defied description. Gardens grew in zero gravity, their roots extending directly into the ship's hull. Holographic displays showed star charts that moved and shifted as if they were living maps, constantly updating with information gathered from sources Chen couldn't identify. "Captain Chen," the voice continued, "I know you have questions. We all did in the beginning. But please understand, what happened to us wasn't an accident or an attack. It was a choice made freely by every member of this crew when we realized that traditional survival wasn't enough." They entered what had once been the ship's main bridge, now transformed into a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling that showed real-time views of the surrounding star system. In the center stood a figure that Chen recognized from historical records, though she had clearly been changed by 3 centuries of something. Elena Vasquez appeared to be in her 30s, just as she had been when the Horizon disappeared, but her eyes held depths that spoke of centuries of experience. Her skin had a subtle luminescence, and when she moved, Chen could see that she was connected to the ship itself by neural interfaces that seemed to be part of her body rather than attached to it. "Yo, still human," Chen breathed, though she wasn't entirely certain it was a statement rather than a question. Elena smiled, and the expression was warm and genuinely human despite everything else. "We are more human than we ever were before, Captain. We are what humanity becomes when it refuses to accept the limitations that the universe tries to impose." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "The ship? It's alive, isn't it? You've somehow created a fusion between human consciousness and organic technology." "Not created," Elena corrected gently. "Discovered. When we were lost in the Veil Nebula, damaged and dying, we encountered something remarkable. A species that had learned to transcend the boundary between biology and technology, between individual consciousness and collective wisdom. They offered us a choice: die as we were, or transform into something that could survive anything the universe might throw at us. Chen felt her worldview shifting like tectonic plates. The entire crew, all 5,000 people. Every single one, Elena confirmed. Though perhaps people isn't quite the right word anymore. We are individuals, but we are also something greater. Watch! The chamber filled with soft light, and suddenly Chen could see them. Translucent figures moving through the ship, some recognizably human, others evolved into forms that were beautiful and alien. They worked in perfect harmony, their consciousness linked but their individuality preserved. Dr. Morrison is tending to our stellar gardens in Section 7, Elena explained. Captain Sterling is running tactical simulations that help us understand the current state of galactic politics. Our children, yes, we have children, born into this new existence, are exploring mathematical concepts that your finest physicists are only beginning to imagine. Chen's mind reeled. Children. Elena's expression grew tender. 3 centuries is a long time, Captain. We have grown, learned, and yes, created new life. Our children are born human but adapted for this existence from the moment of conception. They have never known the limitations that once defined our species. The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. You're offering this to us, aren't you? This transformation. We're offering it to humanity, Elena replied. Not as a replacement for what you are, but as an option for what you could become. The universe is vast and dangerous, Captain. Wars rage between species that have capabilities you can't imagine. Earth's current technology, impressive as it is, won't be enough when the real threats emerge. Chen looked around at her team, seeing her own mixture of wonder and terror reflected in their faces. They had come looking for survivors and instead found something that challenged the very definition of human survival. We need time, Chen said finally. Time to understand, to process, to make a decision that will affect all of humanity. Elena nodded, her smile never wavering. Of course, time is something we have learned to appreciate differently here. Stay with us, learn from us, see what we have become, and then help humanity choose its path forward. As if responding to Elena's words, the ship itself seemed to pulse with welcoming energy, and Chen realized that they weren't just aboard a vessel anymore. They were inside a living embodiment of humanity's potential future. Dr. Tanaka had not slept in 36 hours. She moved through the horizon's biolaboratories like a woman possessed, documenting technologies that shouldn't exist and biological processes that defied every principle she had learned in her 20 years as a xenobiologist. The ship itself seemed a sense of fascination, opening new sections for her exploration and providing data streams directly into her consciousness when she touched certain interfaces. This is incredible, she whispered to her recording device, standing before a cultivation chamber where human tissue was being grown using methods that incorporated both advanced genetics and what appeared to be conscious manipulation of matter at the molecular level. They haven't just merged with alien technology, they've learned to guide evolution itself. Meanwhile, Captain Chen walked through what Elena called the memory gardens, vast chambers where the ship's walls displayed the recorded experiences of the crew over 3 centuries of transformation. She watched battles fought against incomprehensible enemies, diplomatic encounters with species that communicated through shared consciousness, and moments of discovery that had advanced their understanding of the universe by millennia. You fought the Devourers, Chen observed, watching a tactical display show the horizon engaging massive, shadowy vessels that seemed to consume light itself. The intelligence reports were right, they are real. Elena materialized beside her, her form solidifying from the ship's structure itself. The Devourers are just one of many threats that exist beyond the borders of known space. Captain, during our first century of transformation, we encountered 17 different species that possessed the capability to end human civilization within days. We fought some, befriended others, and learned from all of them. The display shifted to show a planet-sized entity that appeared to be made of crystalline structures and pure energy. The architects of Andromeda, Elena continued. They reshape entire solar systems according to their aesthetic preferences. Beautiful, but utterly without regard for existing life. We spent 40 years learning to communicate with them, eventually convincing them to spare a dozen inhabited worlds. Chen stared at the images, feeling the weight of humanity's ignorance. Why didn't you contact Earth? Send warnings about these threats. Elena's expression grew sad. We tried for the first 50 years, but our transmissions were either lost in the vastness of space or dismissed as impossible by your scientists. Eventually, we realized that humanity wasn't ready to know about the true nature of the universe. You needed time to grow, to develop, to become strong enough to face these realities. In another section of the ship, Chen's communications officer, Liu, was experiencing something that challenged her understanding of consciousness itself. She sat in what the crew called a harmony chamber, her mind linked to the collective consciousness of the Horizon's children, beings born into the transformed existence who had never known the limitations of purely biological life. The experience was overwhelming. Through their shared awareness, Liu could perceive mathematics as living entities, feel the gravitational songs of distant stars, and understand the deep current of energy that flowed between galaxies. But more than that, she could feel the love, curiosity, and determination that drove these evolved humans to protect a universe full of life they had never directly encountered. "We dream of Earth," whispered one of the children, a being whose consciousness touched Liu's with the gentleness of a summer breeze. "We see it through the memories our parents share, blue oceans, green forests, the first sunrise over a world that doesn't know it's small. We have given up much to become what we are, but we remember what we're protecting." Back in the ship's central core, Elena was showing Chen the true heart of the Horizon's transformation. They stood in a chamber that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, where the boundary between matter and energy, between individual and collective, became meaningless. "This is where the choice happens," Elena explained. "Every human who joins us comes here, and the ship, which is also us, which is also itself, offers them the path forward. Some choose gradual transformation, retaining their original form while slowly gaining new capabilities. Others embrace complete metamorphosis, becoming something beautiful and strange and powerful." Chen watched as ghostly figures moved through the chamber, some clearly human, others so transformed that she could only recognize their humanity by the familiar emotions that radiated from them. "What about fear?" she asked. "What about the people who choose not to transform?" "They are honored equally," Elena replied immediately. "We have maintained spaces aboard the ship for those who prefer to remain biologically human. They age normally, live full lives, and contribute to our community in ways that the transformed cannot. Their perspective is invaluable. They remind us of where we came from and help us maintain our connection to pure humanity." A new voice joined the conversation, and Chen turned to see a figure she recognized from historical records, Captain Robert Sterling, though he too had been changed by 3 centuries of transformation. His presence radiated the tactical brilliance that had made him legendary, but now it was enhanced by an understanding of warfare and strategy that encompassed multiple dimensions of space and time. "Captain Chen," Sterling said, his voice carrying harmonics that suggested he was simultaneously speaking from multiple locations throughout the ship. "I've been monitoring Earth's military development through your ship's databases. Humanity has made impressive advances, but you're still thinking in 3 dimensions, still limited by the speed of light, still bound by the assumption that consciousness and matter are separate phenomena." He gestured, and the chamber filled with a holographic representation of local space, showing not just the positions of stars and planets, but the flows of energy, the patterns of consciousness, and the hidden structures that connected everything in the universe. "The next galactic war is coming," Sterling continued. "Our sensors detect massive fleet movements in the Magellantic clouds, technology being developed that makes the Devourers look primitive. Earth is perhaps 50 years before these forces reach inhabited space, and humanity's current capabilities won't be sufficient to survive what's coming." Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. "You're asking us to choose between remaining human and remaining alive." Elena's expression was gentle but implacable. "We're asking you to choose between remaining limited and becoming unlimited. The humanity you're trying to preserve won't survive what's coming, Captain. But the humanity we offer, enhanced, evolved, capable of touching the infinite while retaining everything essential about the human spirit, that humanity could not only survive but thrive among the stars for millions of years." The weight of the decision pressed down on Chen like the gravity of a collapsed star. In the space of 3 days, everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe had been shattered and rebuilt. Now she had to return to Earth with a choice that would define the species' future, or lack thereof. The emergency session of a United Earth Council convened in the deepest bunkers beneath Geneva, where the most classified decisions in human history had been made. Chen stood before the assembled representatives of every nation and colony, her report delivered with the clinical precision of a military officer, even as her hands trembled with the magnitude of what she was proposing. "The threat is real and imminent," she concluded, the holographic display showing Sterling's tactical analysis of the approaching forces. "Our most optimistic projections give Earth a 12% chance of survival if we face this enemy with current technology. The horizon offers us an alternative, but the cost—" She paused, struggling to find words that could encompass the magnitude of the choice. "The cost is everything we think we know about being human." President Sarah Martinez of the Americas Federation leaned forward, her face haggard with the weight of leadership during humanity's darkest hour. "Captain, you're asking us to gamble our entire species on the word of people who disappeared 3 centuries ago and claim to have transcended human limitations. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trap?" Chen had expected this question, had asked it herself during sleepless nights aboard the Pathfinder. "Madam President, I've seen what they become. I've felt their genuine love for humanity, witnessed their capabilities firsthand. The horizon could have conquered Earth centuries ago if that was their intention. Instead, they spent 300 years preparing for a threat we didn't even know existed." Director General Kwame Asante of the African Union stood, his voice heavy with skepticism. "Even if we accept their good intentions, Captain, what guarantee do we have that this transformation won't destroy the very essence of what makes us human? Love, creativity, individual thought. Could these survive such radical change?" Before Chen could answer, the chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. Elena Vasquez's voice filled the room, speaking with the warm certainty of someone who had faced this exact fear and overcome it. "Director General Asante," Elena said, "may I share something with you?" The holographic displays flickered, and suddenly the council chamber was filled with music, a composition of impossible beauty that seemed to incorporate the songs of stars, the rhythms of planetary rotation, and melodies that touched emotions humans had never experienced before. Yet underneath it all was something unmistakably human, the yearning for connection, the joy of discovery, the bittersweet beauty of mortality transcended but not forgotten. This was composed by Maria Santos Chen. Elena continued as the music faded. "She was 7 years old when we found her parents dead in the ruins of our hydroponics bay during our 2nd year of transformation. We raised her as our own, and she has become something magnificent, a bridge between pure human creativity and the expanded consciousness we now share. Her music has helped us negotiate peaceful contact with species that communicate only through harmonic frequencies." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just preservation of human nature. It was evolution of human potential. Chancellor Klaus Weber of the European Alliance spoke carefully. "What about those who choose not to transform? You mentioned that some crew members retain their original biology." "They are treasured beyond measure," Elena replied immediately. Dr. Patricia Williams, our head of cultural preservation, chose to remain unmodified. She has lived a full human lifespan aboard the Horizon, documenting our transformation, serving as our conscience and our anchor to pure humanity. When she died last year at the age of 93, the entire ship mourned for months. Her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, some transformed, some not, continue her work. Chen watched the faces of the council members, seeing the same mixture of fear and hope she had experienced. "There's something else," she added. "The transformation isn't irreversible in early stages. Elena showed me crew members who chose to return to pure human biology after decades of enhancement. The choice remains open, even after commitment." The debate raged for hours. Scientists demanded more data. Military leaders focused on the tactical implications. Philosophers argued about the nature of human identity. Religious representatives grappled with questions of soul and transcendence. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge, not about the answer, but about the necessity of choosing. Finally, President Martinez called for a preliminary vote. All those in favor of opening formal negotiations with the Horizon for voluntary transformation protocols. The vote was closer than Chen had hoped, but more decisive than she had feared. 68% in favor. Humanity would take its first steps toward transcendence, but not without significant resistance. As the session ended, Chen received a priority transmission from the Pathfinder, still in orbit around Kepler 442. Dr. Tanaka's voice was tight with urgency. "Captain, you need to get back here immediately. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy, something bigger than anything the Horizon's records describe. Elena estimates we have 18 months, not 50 years." The council chamber erupted in alarm as Chen's face went pale. She turned back to the assembled leaders, her voice cutting through the chaos with military precision. "Ladies and gentlemen, the decision has been made for us. We no longer have the luxury of extended debate. Humanity must choose, transform or face extinction." Elena's voice returned to the chamber, but now it carried new harmonics, the sound of a consciousness preparing for war on a scale that spanned galaxies. "Captain Chen is correct," she said. "The entropy swarm has begun its final approach. They are a force that exists to unmake consciousness itself, to return the universe to primordial chaos. We've fought them before, but never in numbers this vast. Earth must decide now. Will you face the end of everything as you are, or will you stand with us as something more?" Through the council chamber's windows, Chen could see the stars that had seemed so distant and peaceful just days before. Now she knew that among them moved forces of creation and destruction on a scale that made human war seem like children's games. Humanity stood at the threshold of either its greatest triumph or its final extinction, and the choice could not be delayed any longer. 6 months later, the first transformation centers opened in orbit around Earth, Luna, and Mars. Chen stood in the observation deck of Station Unity, watching as volunteers from every nation and colony made their way to the transformation chambers that the Horizon had helped humanity construct. The stations themselves were marvels of hybrid technology, part human engineering, part living organism, capable of facilitating the gradual evolution Elena had described. The process had not been without controversy. Riots had erupted in major cities. 3 nations had withdrawn from the United Earth Alliance rather than participate. Religious schisms had torn apart communities as people struggled to reconcile transformation with their beliefs about human nature and divine creation. But for every voice raised in opposition, 2 others spoke in favor of survival, evolution, and the chance to become something greater than they had ever imagined possible. Chen herself had undergone the first stages of transformation, a decision that had surprised even her. The changes were subtle but profound, enhanced perception that allowed her to see energy patterns invisible to unmodified humans, a conscious connection to the station's living systems that felt like touching the mind of a benevolent giant, and most remarkably, a sense of expanded empathy that let her feel the hopes and fears of everyone around her. "The first generation is adapting beautifully," reported Dr. Tanaka, who had embraced transformation so completely that she now existed as both an individual consciousness and part of the station's collective intelligence. "We're seeing enhanced problem-solving capabilities, improved emotional resilience, and most importantly, retention of individual personality and creativity." Through the observation windows, Chen could see the Horizon itself, now serving as a flagship of humanity's first truly interstellar fleet. Over the past months, it had grown even larger as more humans chose complete transformation, their consciousness adding to its collective while their bodies were integrated into its living structure. But it was no longer alone. Humanity had built 12 new vessels using the hybrid technology, each one a living ship capable of feats that would have been considered impossible just a year earlier. "Captain," came Elena's voice, now speaking through both the station's communication systems and Chen's enhanced consciousness simultaneously. "Long-range sensors are detecting the entropy swarm's advanced forces. They'll reach the outer colonies within 3 months." Chen nodded, feeling the weight of command she had carried since being appointed admiral of the new hybrid fleet. Around the solar system, humanity's response was taking shape. Some had chosen full transformation, becoming part of the living ships that would carry Earth's consciousness to the stars. Others had selected partial enhancement, retaining their biological forms while gaining capabilities that would let them fight alongside their transformed siblings. A significant minority had chosen to remain unmodified, and they too had their role, serving as a genetic and cultural foundation that would preserve pure humanity no matter what the future brought. "Status report from all vessels," Chen commanded, her consciousness automatically linking to the fleet's collective intelligence. The responses flowed into her awareness like a symphony of thought and data. The UES evolution, crewed by the most extensively transformed humans, reported readiness for combat in dimensions beyond normal space-time. The UES synthesis, with a mixed crew of modified and unmodified humans, had perfected weapon systems that could reshape matter at the quantum level. The UES heritage, maintained in traditional configuration but enhanced with living technology, served as the fleet's cultural and strategic command center. But it was a report from the horizon itself that filled Chen with both hope and sadness. Captain Sterling's consciousness reached out to hers, sharing tactical data that revealed the true scope of what they faced. "Admiral," Sterling's thoughts whispered across the link, "the entropy swarm isn't just another species trying to expand its territory. It's something that opposes the very concept of organized consciousness. They've destroyed 17 civilizations in the past millennium, each one more advanced than current humanity. We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the right of consciousness to exist in an ordered universe." Chen absorbed the tactical displays showing enemy formations that stretched across light years, vessels that seemed to be made of crystallized void, and weapons that could unravel the fundamental forces holding matter together. Against this, humanity was preparing to deploy 4 to 7 vessels and approximately 2 million transformed individuals, a David and Goliath scenario that would have been laughable if not for what she had witnessed of humanity's new capabilities. All stations. This is Admiral Chen. She broadcasts across both traditional communication channels and the consciousness network that now link transformed humanity. In 1 hour, we will begin our first engagement with advanced elements of the entropy swarm. This is not just a battle for human survival. It's a test of whether love, creativity, and individual consciousness can prevail against forces that seek to reduce the universe to meaningless chaos. She paused, feeling the attention of millions of minds focusing on her words, both transformed and unmodified humans united in a determination to survive. "We are no longer the same species that launched the Horizon 3 centuries ago," Chen continued. "We have become something new, not less human, but more than human. We carry within us the dreams of Earth's children, the wisdom of species we befriended among the stars, and the love that binds all conscious life together. Today, we discover whether that's enough." The first enemy vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system like tears in reality itself, their arrival marked by the dimming of nearby stars as they absorbed light and energy into their incomprehensible forms. But humanity was ready. The hybrid fleet moved with precision that seemed almost choreographed, each vessel taking a position in a formation that spanned 3 dimensions of normal space and several layers of hyperspace beyond. As the battle began, Chen felt a moment of perfect clarity through her enhanced consciousness. She could perceive the individual thoughts and fears of every person in the fleet, the collective determination of the transformed crew members, and the quiet courage of the unmodified humans who had chosen to face the ultimate unknown. Whatever happened in the next few hours, humanity had already achieved something miraculous. It had evolved beyond its limitations while never abandoning the essential qualities that made it worth preserving. The first energy exchanges lit up the space between Jupiter and Saturn, and Chen smiled as she realized that the entropy swarm had made a critical error. They had expected to face the same limited, fragmented humanity they had encountered centuries ago. Instead, they were fighting something unprecedented, a species that had learned to transcend its boundaries while keeping its heart intact. The real battle for consciousness itself was about to begin.